The sun dipped low over the wide Texas plains, spreading a golden glow across the horizon. The sky turned shades of orange and rose, and the wind carried the faint smell of dust and wildflowers. In the distance, a lone rider made his way toward the small town of Red Creek, a quiet place where everyone knew everyone, and where secrets were hard to keep. The man on horseback was Cole Turner, a cowboy known for his calm strength and restless soul. He had worked on ranches all over the state, fixing fences, breaking horses, and living a life that never stayed still for long. That evening, Cole rode into town to take a break from the hard trails. He tied his horse outside a small diner that looked as tired as he was. The sign above the door creaked in the wind, and the smell of coffee and fresh pie drifted out when he stepped inside. The few people there glanced his way, giving him that look strangers always got in small towns, and curious but cautious. Cole nodded politely and took a seat at the counter. A woman's voice came from behind him, warm but strong. "Coffee?" When he turned, his eyes met hers. Hazel eyes that had a spark, like they had seen both laughter and pain. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back loosely, and a towel hung over her shoulder. Her name tag read, Lena. There was something about her that stood out, not because she tried to, but because she didn't. She carried herself like someone who had lived through storms and learned not to hide her scars. Cole smiled a little. "Yes, ma'am. Black, if you please." She poured his cup and placed it in front of him. "You're not from around here," she said, not as a question but as a statement. "No, ma'am," he replied. "Just passing through." Lena nodded, wiping the counter slowly. "That's what they all say." There was a quiet moment, the kind that says more than words can. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows, and somewhere in the back, an old radio played a soft country tune. Cole watched her move around the diner, noticing the tired grace in her steps. She had a beauty that didn't ask to be noticed, the kind that came from surviving more than she ever talked about. After a while, she came back with a plate of pie. "On the house," she said. Cole raised a brow. "You always feed strangers for free?" She gave a small smile. "Only the ones who look like they haven't eaten anything that wasn't cooked over a campfire in a while." He chuckled. "Then I guess you read me right." They talked for a few minutes. Small talk at first, about weather and work and the kind of things that didn't mean much but made the world feel less lonely. But there was something unspoken between them, a quiet understanding. He didn't ask about her life, but he could tell she had one full of stories, the kind that don't get told unless someone really listens. When the diner started to close, Cole stood up and reached for his hat. "Thanks for the coffee and pie," he said. "Sure," she replied. "Safe travels, cowboy." He gave her a nod and stepped outside. But as he walked to his horse, he looked back through the window. She was there, standing by the counter, looking out into the night. There was a loneliness in her eyes that matched his own, and for a moment he wondered if maybe Red Creek was the kind of place a man could stop running. The next morning, he was still in town. He'd planned to leave, but something made him stay. Maybe it was the quiet charm of the place, or maybe it was Lena's voice that echoed in his mind. He found work at a nearby ranch helping a local named Henry fix fences and move cattle. It wasn't much, but it kept his hands busy and his thoughts from wandering too far. Every evening after work, he stopped by the diner. Lena always pretended not to expect him, but she'd already have his coffee ready when he walked in. Some nights they talked for hours. Other nights they just sat quietly, listening to the soft hum of the radio and the sound of crickets outside. Cole learned that Lena had lived in Red Creek all her life. She once dreamed of leaving, but life had other plans. Her parents had passed when she was young, and the diner had become her home. She didn't talk much about her past, but her eyes told him she'd seen her share of heartbreak. One night as they cleaned up, Cole said softly, "You ever think about leaving this place?" Lena stopped wiping a table and looked at him. "All the time," she said. "But running doesn't fix what hurts. I learned that the hard way." Cole nodded, understanding more than he said. "I guess I'm still learning that." She gave a small smile. "You seem like a man with a lot behind him." He met her gaze. "And you seem like a woman who doesn't scare easy." She laughed quietly, the sound both strong and tender. "I'm no saint, cowboy," he smiled. "Good," he said. "I need a real woman, not an angel." For a moment, they just looked at each other, no pretending, no masks. The air between them felt alive, full of something they both had forgotten how to feel. Outside, the night was deep and still, and the stars shone like promises waiting to be kept. After that night, something shifted. Cole started to help her around the diner after work, fixing the old sign, repainting the front door, even bringing in flowers from the field outside town. The people of Red Creek began to notice how often they were together, and gossip spread the way it always does in small towns. But neither of them seemed to care. There was a quiet peace in their evenings together. Lena's laughter came easier, and Cole began to think maybe, just maybe, this was where he belonged. Yet beneath that peace, both of them carried fears. She feared being left behind again, and he feared staying long enough to lose something he cared about. As the weeks passed, Red Creek became more than a stop on Cole's journey. It began to feel like home. And for Lena, who had long stopped believing in new beginnings, the cowboy's steady presence began to heal something deep inside her. But deep down, both knew that life had a way of testing people when they least expected it. Neither of them could guess that the peace they'd found was only the calm before the storm. A storm that would force them to face everything they'd been running from, together or apart. And that's how their story truly began, with a cup of coffee, a tired smile, and two hearts that had finally found something real. The days in Red Creek passed slowly, but they carried a warmth that Cole hadn't felt in years. The small town, with its dusty roads and wooden fences, had started to feel like more than just another stop on his endless trail. Every morning the sun rose over the hills, bathing the fields in gold, and every evening, the air filled with the sound of crickets and the smell of coffee coming from Lena's diner. Cole had settled into a rhythm, working at the ranch during the day and spending his evenings at the diner. It was simple, but it was good. He had never thought a quiet town could calm the noise in his heart. And Lena, she had become part of that peace. She didn't try to change him, didn't ask him for promises. She just let him be, and somehow that made him want to stay. Still, both of them knew that happiness, especially in a place like Red Creek, came with shadows. Cole had a past that followed him like dust on his boots. He didn't talk about it much, but sometimes, when the nights got too quiet, Lena would see a faraway look in his eyes, the kind that only comes from memories a man can't shake off. One evening, as the sky turned purple and the lamps in the diner flickered on, Cole sat at the counter waiting for his coffee. Lena was behind the counter, drying glasses with a clean cloth. She looked tired but calm, like someone who had finally found a bit of rest. "You've been quiet tonight," she said softly. Cole smiled faintly. "Just thinking." "About what?" she asked, placing the glass down. "About how long peace like this lasts," he said, looking out the window. "Sometimes I think life gives us calm just to see if we can hold on to it." Lena leaned against the counter, studying him. "You sound like a man waiting for something bad to happen." He shrugged. "Maybe I'm just a man who's seen how fast good things can disappear." She gave a small nod. "Then maybe you should stop waiting for the worst and start living for what's right in front of you." Cole looked at her then, really looked at her, at the kindness in her eyes, the strength in her voice, and the way her presence seemed to fill the empty spaces in him. For the first time in years, he didn't want to run, but peace never lasts forever. A few days later, the calm of Red Creek was broken. A stranger rode into town, a tall man wearing a dark coat and a serious look. He walked with the kind of confidence that made people step aside. When he entered the diner, the bell above the door rang and every head turned. Lena froze for just a second when she saw him. Cole noticed it right away. "Lena?" he asked quietly. She forced a smile. "Just another traveler," she said. But her voice had a faint tremor. The stranger took a seat at the corner table, his hat low over his eyes. When Lena brought him coffee, he said something in a low voice that made her stop for a moment. Cole couldn't hear what it was, but he saw the color drain from her face. After the man left, Lena stayed quiet. Her hands trembled slightly as she cleared his table. Cole waited until the last customer was gone before asking, "Who was he?" She hesitated. "Someone from my past." Cole's expression softened. "You want to talk about it?" She shook her head. Not yet. He didn't push her. He just nodded and helped her close up. But that night, neither of them slept well. Lena kept thinking about the stranger's cold eyes and the words he'd whispered. "You can't hide forever." The next day, rumors spread fast. Folks said the man was asking about someone, a woman who used to live down by the old rail station years ago. Some said she'd been through trouble, that she left to escape something. By noon, Cole had heard enough to put the pieces together. He found Lena sitting behind the diner staring at the open fields. Her shoulders were tense and her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "Tell me the truth, Lena," he said gently. "Who was that man?" She looked up at him, her eyes filled with sadness and fear. "His name's Ray Dalton," she said quietly. "Years ago I worked for him. He owned a saloon in another town. Things were bad there. He treated people worse than dirt, and I saw too much I shouldn't have. When I finally left, I promised myself I'd never look back. But I guess the past doesn't let go that easy." Cole crouched down beside her. "Is he dangerous?" She hesitated. "Not in the way you think. He's not after me to hurt me. He wants me to go back to work for him again. He thinks he still owns people, and he doesn't take no kindly." Cole clenched his jaw. "You're not going anywhere. Not if you don't want to." She gave him a weak smile. "I've run before, Cole. I can do it again if I have to." He shook his head. "No, you've built a life here. You've earned your peace. You shouldn't have to keep running." For a long moment they sat in silence. The wind rustled through the tall grass and the sun began to dip low behind the hills. Then Lena said softly, "You can't fight every storm. Cowboy." "Maybe not," he replied, "but I can stand with you through this one." That night, Cole stayed close to the diner, keeping watch from the porch. The town was quiet, but he couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. The next day the stranger came back. He stood outside the diner waiting. When Lena stepped out, he smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that meant kindness. Cole saw it from across the street and started walking over. Ray tipped his hat at Lena. "You've had your fun here," he said. "Time to come home." "This is my home now," she said firmly. His expression hardened. "You think that cowboy can keep you safe?" "You know how this goes, Lena. You walk away from me, you lose everything." Before Lena could answer, Cole stepped between them. "She already made her choice," he said. Ray looked him up and down. "And who are you?" "Just someone who doesn't like bullies," Cole replied. For a moment the air felt thick with tension. Then Ray smirked, muttered something under his breath and walked away. But everyone knew it wasn't over. That night the diner was quiet again. Lena locked the doors early. Cole sat with her in the dim light, the hum of the old refrigerator filling the silence. "You didn't have to stand up for me like that," she said softly. He looked at her, his voice calm. "Yes, I did," her eyes glistened. "You don't even know everything about me." "I don't need to," he said. "I know who you are now, and that's enough." Lena took a deep breath, her heart both heavy and light. For years she'd lived afraid of the past catching up, but that night for the first time she didn't feel alone. She realized that sometimes courage doesn't come from running. It comes from finding someone willing to stay. Outside, the stars stretched wide over the plains, silent witnesses to two souls who had finally decided to stop hiding. But both of them knew the story wasn't finished yet. The past had found them once, and it might try again. And though neither said it out loud, they both knew that when the next test came, they'd face it together, whatever it cost. The days after the stranger's visit passed slowly, but a quiet tension lingered in Red Creek. The town seemed ordinary, with its dusty roads and wooden porches, but both Lena and Cole knew the calm was fragile. Each morning the sun rose over the hills, painting the fields with a golden glow, and each evening the wind whispered through the tall grass. But beneath the soft sounds of the prairie, an unspoken challenge waited. Cole spent his days at the ranch, repairing fences, tending to cattle, and helping with chores. His hands were rough from work, but each task grounded him, kept his mind steady. Lena, meanwhile, managed the diner with a quiet strength. She moved through her day with practiced ease, serving coffee, cleaning tables, and keeping the small town fed and comfortable. But at night, when the diner was closed, she would sometimes sit by the window staring into the dark fields, thinking of the man from her past. Cole noticed it in the way she hesitated at the door, the small tightness in her shoulders, the distant look in her eyes. He never pressed her, but he stayed close, offering silent support, the kind that doesn't need words. There was trust growing between them, a steady warmth that neither had expected. For Lena, it was a feeling she hadn't known she was missing. For Cole, it was a piece he didn't want to leave behind. One afternoon, while they were fixing a broken fence at the edge of the ranch, Lena finally spoke. "You know," she said, tightening a wire, Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be completely free from my past. Cole paused and wiped sweat from his brow. You're free now. Don't let him or anyone make you doubt that, she sighed. I try, but freedom isn't just about leaving. It's about feeling safe knowing you can stay without fear. He nodded, understanding more than he could say. Then I'll make sure you feel safe. You don't have to face anything alone. Lena looked at him, her hazel eyes shining in the sunlight. I've never had someone say that and mean it. Cole smiled faintly. I mean it. Their days continued like this, a careful balance of work and quiet moments together. They laughed, shared stories, and began to create a sense of home between them. Cole helped around the diner whenever he could, fixing broken shelves, painting the porch, and even planting flowers outside. Lena noticed his small gestures, the way he quietly made her life easier without asking for anything in return. She began to trust him not just with her heart, but with the parts of her she usually kept hidden. But peace, as always, has a way of being tested. One evening, as the sun was setting and the sky glowed in shades of pink and orange, a messenger arrived at the diner. A small envelope sealed with a wax stamp was handed to Lena. She looked at it, and her hand trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Cole watched her, sensing the tension before he even knew what the message contained. The letter was from Ray Dalton, the man from her past. It was polite in tone but firm. He wanted her to return, not because he cared, but because he believed he could control her. The words carried a weight that reminded her of old fears, the ones she had spent years running from. Cole read the letter silently over her shoulder. You don't have to go, he said quietly. Not now, not ever. Lena shook her head. It's not that simple. He's the kind of man who doesn't take no lightly. Cole's jaw tightened. Then we'll face him together. You're not alone in this, Lena. I'm not leaving. The next day, the town seemed different. People whispered, curious about the letter, about the man who had come back into Lena's life. But Lena refused to hide. She continued her work at the diner, keeping her head high and her movements calm. Cole stayed close, a steady presence at her side. They both knew that fear couldn't control them, not if they stood together. As the days passed, they made plans. They talked quietly in the evenings about what they would do if Dalton returned, how they would protect the diner, the town, and each other. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but their bond had grown strong enough that neither wanted to consider running again. One night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Lena leaned her head on Cole's shoulder. I used to think life was just about surviving, she said softly. But now I feel like it's about choosing what you live for. Cole put his arm around her. Then choose this, Lena. Choose us. We'll face whatever comes together. The weeks that followed were filled with careful vigilance. Dalton did not appear immediately, but his presence was felt, like a shadow stretching across the town. Red Creek's residents noticed Cole and Lena's quiet determination, and though they were a small community, the townspeople began offering their support. A sense of solidarity grew, strengthening Lena's courage and Cole's resolve. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned deep purple, a rider appeared on the horizon. Cole saw him first, his sharp eyes catching the familiar shape of a tall man in a dark coat. Lena's hand tightened in his, but she did not move away. Cole stood, his stance firm and steady. Stay behind me, he said softly. The man approached, and Cole recognized him immediately. Ray Dalton. He dismounted, his boots kicking up dust as he walked toward the diner. But Cole did not flinch. He kept his hand near the lasso at his side, not because he wanted to fight, but because he wanted to protect Lena and what they had built. Dalton stopped a few feet away, his eyes cold. I see you've found someone to protect you, he said to Lena. Lena held his gaze. I don't need protecting. I just need you to leave. Cole stepped closer, a quiet strength in his presence. She's not going anywhere with you. Not now, not ever, Dalton sneered. You think you can stop me? Cole shook his head slightly. No, but I know we're not afraid of standing together. For a moment, the wind seemed to hold its breath. Dalton studied them, measuring the determination in their eyes, and then, without another word, he turned and walked away. Cole and Lena watched him go, knowing that this confrontation was only temporary, that the past might come knocking again. But for the first time, they felt unshakable in their courage. That night, as the town slept, Lena and Cole sat on the porch once more. The stars sparkled above, silent witnesses to the bond that had formed between them. Lena rested her head on Cole's shoulder, feeling a peace she had never known before. "Do you think it will ever be easy?" she asked. Cole smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Life's never easy, Lena, but it's worth it when you have someone to face it with." She smiled back, the fear of the past slowly fading. "Then let's face it together." And in that quiet moment on the porch of a small diner in Red Creek, they both knew that whatever storms lay ahead, they would meet them side by side. The past might try to reach them again, but the love and trust they had built would always be stronger. Together they had found not just safety but a home, a place where they could finally belong. The weeks that followed Dalton's departure brought a calm that felt almost new to Red Creek. The town carried on with its usual rhythm, the dust rising from the dirt roads, the cattle moving across the pastures, and the smell of fresh bread and coffee drifting from Lena's diner. But for Lena and Cole, life had changed in a way that neither of them had expected. The fear that had once shadowed their days was slowly replaced with hope, and the bond between them grew stronger with each shared sunrise and sunset. Cole had become more than just a presence in Lena's life. He was a partner in every sense. He helped with the diner, repaired the fences, and even began teaching Lena small lessons about horseback riding and ranch work. Each day she learned to trust not only in him but in herself, her instincts, her strength, and her ability to face whatever challenges came their way. For the first time in years, she felt capable, grounded, and free. One bright morning, Cole and Lena worked together to repaint the diner's sign. As Cole held the ladder steady, Lena climbed carefully and brushed the fresh white paint over the old letters. The sun glinted off the metal roof, casting long shadows across the porch. Cole watched her from below, smiling at the careful precision in her movements. "You're a natural," he said, his voice warm. Lena laughed softly. "Careful, I might start thinking I can do everything myself." "You already do," he replied. They shared a quiet smile, the kind that spoke volumes without words. Every small moment they spent together deepened the connection that had grown between them. For Lena, it wasn't just about safety or comfort anymore. It was about building a life with someone who truly understood her. For Cole, it was about finding a place where he didn't feel the need to keep moving, a place where he could finally stay and matter. Life in Red Creek began to blossom. Cole and Lena planted a small garden behind the diner, filling it with tomatoes, peppers, and flowers. They spent long afternoons tending the soil, laughing when dirt ended up on their clothes or in their hair. Children from the town came by, curious about the garden, and even the older residents offered advice, tips, and seeds. Slowly, the diner became more than just a place to eat. It became a hub of community life, a symbol of renewal and resilience. But even as the town flourished, the memory of Dalton lingered. Neither Lena nor Cole mentioned him often, but both knew that the past was never completely gone. It was a quiet presence, a reminder that life could change in an instant. They had learned to live with that knowledge, letting it guide their caution without allowing it to dominate their days. One afternoon, as the golden light of late summer poured across the prairie, Cole and Lena decided to take a break from work and ride out together. They saddled their horses and rode along the winding trails, the wind whipping through their hair, the sound of hooves echoing across the open fields. For hours they rode in companionable silence, stopping occasionally to rest by the edge of a creek or under the shade of a tall oak tree. At one point, Lena stopped her horse and looked out across the horizon. "I never thought I'd feel this." "Come," she said, her voice barely above the soft breeze. Cole nodded. "Peace isn't something that just happens. It's something you build, moment by moment, with the right people beside you." Lena turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, something she had long buried. Hope. "Then I'm glad you stayed," she whispered. He smiled, reaching out to gently take her hand. "I wasn't going anywhere. Not now, not ever." As the days turned into weeks, their lives intertwined in ways both simple and profound. They shared meals, chores, laughter, and quiet moments. The diner became a reflection of their partnership, welcoming, warm, and full of life. Cole often worked on repairs, while Lena experimented with new recipes, both of them learning from one another and discovering new sides of themselves. The town noticed the change too. People admired the couple's dedication to each other and to Red Creek. The local children often lingered by the diner, watching Cole show them how to rope a calf or teaching them simple lessons about caring for the land. Lena shared stories and laughter, letting the children see the warmth in a life rebuilt from hardships. Slowly, the couple became not just residents but pillars of the community. Then came the day when Dalton returned, or at least Cole and Lena knew it could happen at any time. They had prepared, quietly fortifying their home and their hearts. They weren't afraid, not in the way they had been before, but alert and ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Cole often kept watch from the porch at night, while Lena kept her eyes and ears open for any sign of danger. Together they were steady, unshakable, and confident. One evening, as the sun set in a sky streaked with pink and gold, Lena and Cole stood together on the porch, watching the town settle into the quiet of night. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Lena asked, her voice soft. Cole took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "Every day, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. We've built something real here and something worth protecting." Lena smiled, leaning into him. "I used to think happiness was impossible for me, that it was something other people got to have. But now I see it's real, and it's ours." He kissed the top of her head. "It is, and we'll keep it that way together." The months passed and the couple continued to thrive. They hosted small community gatherings at the diner, shared quiet rides across the prairie, and worked side by side to make Red Creek a better place. Every challenge that came their way was met with unity, with laughter, and with unwavering support. The town that had once been quiet and unremarkable became a place full of life, friendship, and hope, all because two people had chosen to face life together, rather than letting the past define them. One crisp autumn morning, as the first golden leaves fell from the trees, Cole and Lena walked hand in hand through the town square. The air was filled with the scent of harvest, the sound of laughter, and the warmth of a community that had grown stronger because of their example. Children ran past, calling out greetings, and neighbors stopped to chat, smiling at the sight of the couple's closeness. Lena turned to Cole, her eyes sparkling. "You know," she said, "I think all of this, is more than I ever dreamed it could be." Cole pulled her close. "Then dream bigger, Lena. Life doesn't have to be small. We can make it whatever we want as long as we do it together." She rested her head on his shoulder, letting the peace of the moment settle over her. "I think I've finally found what I was looking for. Not just peace, but a home. And you, Cole, you're my home." He kissed her forehead gently, feeling the weight of their journey and the promise of their future. "And you're mine." The seasons continued to change, bringing new challenges, joys, and opportunities. But no matter what came, Cole and Lena faced it together, their hearts tied to each other and to the life they had built. The past, with all its shadows and fears, had no power over them anymore. They had found something stronger: love, trust, and a shared purpose. In Red Creek, the diner remained a beacon of warmth and welcome, a symbol of resilience and hope. And on the porch, under the wide sky, two people who had once known fear, loss, and loneliness now shared laughter, dreams, and a future they would face together. Their story, born from chance, courage, and connection, had become a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Two hearts, once guarded and wary, had found a home not just in a town or a building, but in each other. And as the sun set behind the hills, casting the prairie in golden light, Cole and Lena knew that whatever came next, they would meet it side by side. Stronger, braver, and in love, truly, completely, and endlessly. And so in a small town on the wide Texas plains, their journey continued, not with the uncertainty of the past, but with the quiet confidence of two souls who had chosen each other, and found in that choice a life worth living every single day. The morning after Cole had arrived in Red Creek, the town began to reveal itself slowly, like a story unfolding page by page. The streets were narrow, lined with wooden buildings whose paint had faded under years of sun and wind. Horses trotted lazily along the dusty roads, and children ran past, laughing and calling out to neighbors as they carried baskets or chased one another. Cole walked with a steady pace, taking in the rhythm of a town that moved at its own slow, deliberate speed. Every step reminded him of how different this place felt from the endless trails and open ranges he had traveled before. Here there was a sense of permanence, something he had rarely encountered in his life on the move. Cole made his way to the diner again, drawn by both habit and curiosity. Lena was already there, humming softly as she cleaned the counters and arranged chairs. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced lazily in the air. When she saw him, she smiled, a small but genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Back so soon?" she asked, her tone playful yet warm. "Thought I'd check if your coffee tastes as good in the morning as it does in the evening," he replied, sliding onto a stool at the counter. Lena laughed lightly and poured him a fresh cup, the steam curling upward like the promise of a new beginning. "I suppose you'll have to taste it for yourself," she said. They talked over coffee, sharing small bits of conversation about the town, the ranch nearby, and the subtle changes of the season. Cole learned about Red Creek's history, how the town had grown around the old rail station, how the people depended on each other in ways that outsiders might not understand, and how everyone seemed to carry both pride and care in equal measure. Lena spoke with knowledge and fondness, her voice steady, yet there was a softness that hinted at a life more complicated than the calm surface suggested. After breakfast, Cole headed to the nearby ranch. Henry, the ranch owner, greeted him with a firm handshake and a wary smile. "You're not just passing through, are you?" Henry asked, glancing at Cole's boots and the dust on his coat. "I might stay a while," Cole admitted. "Looking for work, maybe a place to rest for a bit." Henry nodded slowly. "We can use another hand. Fences need mending, horses need tending. It's honest work, but it keeps a man busy and out of trouble." Cole spent the day moving along the fences, repairing posts, tightening wires, and guiding cattle from one field to another. His hands were strong and practiced, and soon Henry recognized the skill and care Cole brought to the work. There was a quiet satisfaction in completing a task well, in seeing the field stretched neatly between fences and knowing he had made a difference in their order and safety. By evening, Cole returned to the diner, dusty and tired, but with a sense of accomplishment. Lena greeted him with another cup of coffee, and they settled into a comfortable rhythm of conversation and silence. It was in these quiet moments that Cole began to feel something stirring inside him, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Days turned into weeks, and Cole's presence in Red Creek became more noticeable. The townspeople grew accustomed to seeing him at the ranch, at the diner, and walking the streets. Some were curious, some skeptical, but all recognized the quiet respect he carried in his actions. Cole, for his part, observed the town carefully, learning its rhythms and patterns, its unspoken rules and customs. He began to see the ways people looked out for one another, the unspoken bonds that kept the town alive and strong. Lena and Cole spent more time together as the days passed. Sometimes they worked side by side at the diner, Cole fixing a broken sign or a leaky tap, Lena arranging the chairs and wiping tables. Other times they walked along the edge of town, talking about dreams, fears, and the simple joys of life in Red Creek. There was a growing understanding between them, a silent acknowledgement that they were no longer just strangers passing in the night. One afternoon, as Cole helped Lena organize supplies in the back room of the diner, he noticed a photo on a shelf, a picture of Lena as a young girl, standing beside her parents, both smiling warmly. Cole asked about it gently. "They passed away when I was young," Lena said softly, her eyes lingering on the photograph. "The diner became my home and I stayed here ever since." Cole nodded, understanding the quiet weight of her words. "It must have been hard losing them." "It was," she admitted, "but I had to keep going. Life doesn't wait, and neither do people. I learned to take care of myself, and I learned to appreciate the little moments, like a warm cup of coffee or a kind word from a stranger." Cole looked at her, realizing the depth of her resilience. She was strong, independent, and yet there was a vulnerability in her that drew him in. He felt a growing desire to protect her, not out of ownership, but out of respect and care. Their connection deepened over shared meals, quiet conversations, and small acts of trust. Cole began to notice the way Lena moved through the diner with practiced grace, how she handled each task with attention and care, and how her laughter could lighten even the heaviest of days. Lena, in turn, saw the steadiness in Cole, the quiet strength that didn't need to announce itself, the reliability that made her feel safe in ways she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon and painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, Cole and Lena found themselves on the diner porch sipping coffee in companionable silence. The wind carried the scent of wildflowers and freshly cut hay, and for a moment it felt as though time had slowed just for them. "You've been here a while now," Lena said softly. "Do you ever think about moving on?" Cole shook his head. Not right now. There's something about this place, about you, that makes me want to stay. Lena's eyes softened. I'm glad. I never thought I'd meet someone who just understands. Someone who doesn't judge me for my past. You're stronger than you realize, Cole said. And I don't care about the past. I care about the now, about what we can build together. She smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude in her expression. I've waited a long time to feel safe and understood. Maybe I finally found that. From that day on, their partnership became more intentional. Cole continued his work at the ranch. Lena ran the diner, and together they nurtured a life filled with mutual respect, trust, and growing affection. They shared small joys, the smell of fresh bread, the laughter of children playing outside, the quiet moments under the wide Texas sky. They also shared challenges, learning to navigate the complexities of life in a town where everyone's eyes seemed to watch, and where the past could surface without warning. One rainy afternoon, as the clouds hung low and the wind rattled the windows of the diner, Lena confided in Cole about her fears, not just of the stranger who had visited recently, but of losing herself again to circumstances beyond her control. I've learned to survive, she said quietly, but I've also learned that surviving isn't living. I want more than just survival. I want to feel alive. Cole reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle but steady. Then we'll make sure you do, together. No matter what comes, we'll face it side by side. Lena looked at him, seeing not only the promise in his words but the sincerity in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of hope she hadn't dared to hope for before. Cole wasn't just a traveler passing through. He was a constant, a source of strength and a companion she could rely on. As the rain eased and the sun broke through the clouds, they stepped outside, letting the soft warmth of the afternoon wash over them. The town seemed brighter, more welcoming, and the future, while still uncertain, felt full of possibility. Together, they walked through the streets of Red Creek, hand in hand, knowing that whatever came next, the challenges, the joys, or the surprises, they would face it as a team. Cole's presence had brought stability to Lena's life, and Lena's courage had brought purpose to Cole's restless heart. In the quiet town of Red Creek, amidst the simple rhythms of daily life, two people who had once been strangers were slowly weaving their lives together. Trust, affection, and understanding grew with every shared smile, every quiet conversation, and every moment of mutual care. And in that town, under the wide open sky, it became clear that sometimes the most extraordinary stories aren't about distant adventures or dramatic heroics. They are about ordinary people, finding each other, choosing to stay, and building a life together day by day, moment by moment. Cole and Lena's story was just beginning, and though the path ahead was uncertain, both knew they had found something worth holding on to, a connection that would carry them through anything as long as they faced it together.